I didn't want to believe my daughter, so I watched the hallway camera. I never imagined I would be the kind of father who needed to spy on his own family. But that's exactly what I became. Not because I wanted to catch anyone doing something wrong, but because I couldn't ignore what I was seeing anymore. Or rather, what I wasn't seeing. The look in my daughter's eyes had changed, and I had kept telling myself it was normal, that it was just part of the adjustment. But something deeper was wrong, and deep down, I knew it. Ava was 13. She had been quiet since her mother passed, but over the last few months, the silence had taken on a different tone. She didn't just keep to herself. She avoided eye contact. She moved through the house like she was afraid to be noticed. I would come home from work, and she'd already be in her room. If I knocked, her voice would sound hollow. She barely spoke at dinner. She ate quickly, offered one-word answers, then disappeared again. Lila, my new wife, said it was just a phase. She'd say, "She's still adjusting. Teenagers are like this. She'll come around." She always said it with a patient tone, like she was the one doing all the work. And for a while, I believed her. I wanted to believe her. I needed this marriage to work. I needed to feel like I wasn't failing at starting over. But the moments started piling up. I'd walk into the room and see Ava quietly backing away from a conversation. I'd hear Lila's voice from the other side of the house, sharp and quick, only to find her smiling as soon as she saw me. Ava once flinched when Lila put a hand on her shoulder in front of me. When I asked about it later, she just shook her head and said it didn't matter. But it did. One night, Ava came to me after Lila had gone to bed. She was still in her hoodie, her face puffy like she had been crying for a while. "Dad," she said, "can I ask you something?" I nodded, and she hesitated. Her voice was barely more than a whisper. "Do you believe me when I say she's different when you're not around?" I didn't know what to say. I looked at her and saw this mix of fear and exhaustion. I asked what she meant. "She says stuff. She says I make things harder, that I ruined your marriage, that Mom would be ashamed of me." I felt something inside my chest go cold. I asked her if she was sure. She pulled back like I'd slapped her. "I knew it. You think I'm making it up." "Ava, that's not what I said. You didn't have to." She walked back to her room. No yelling, no drama, just quiet hurt. I sat in the living room for a long time that night. The TV was on, but I couldn't focus. My mind was spinning. Had I been so eager to rebuild my life that I ignored what was happening right in front of me? The next morning, I ordered a small security camera. Nothing fancy. Just something I could put in the hallway. I told myself it was just to be sure, just to protect everyone. But deep down, I was afraid of what I might find, and more afraid of what it would mean if my daughter was telling the truth. Because if she was, I had failed her in the worst way. The camera arrived 2 days later. I waited until everyone was asleep before installing it. I placed it in the hallway just above the picture frames, angled to catch the bedroom doors and the stretch of space leading to the kitchen. It wasn't hidden in a creepy way. I just didn't mention it. I told myself it was temporary, just until I felt sure again. The first night, nothing unusual. Everyone went to bed early. I scrolled through the footage the next morning over coffee. Ava's door stayed shut. Lila went to the bathroom once, then came back to bed. That was it. The next night, I stayed late at work. I didn't text ahead like I normally would. I wanted to see the house when they thought I wasn't coming. That evening, Ava didn't come out of her room for dinner. Lila told me Ava was pouting again and that she'd grown tired of the attitude. She said it with a smile, but her eyes didn't match her voice. That night, I watched the recording as soon as I got up. It was subtle, but something felt off. Around 6:45, Lila stood outside Ava's door. She knocked once, then entered without waiting. The sound didn't carry on the footage, but the way Lila moved told me enough. She was pointing her finger. Her body was stiff, aggressive. Ava sat on the bed, arms crossed. When Lila walked out 2 minutes later, she was smiling again. That smile haunted me more than the silence. On the third day, everything cracked open. I had a work meeting late in the afternoon, so I left the house around 3. Lila was home. Ava was too. I checked the footage that night the moment I got the chance. It started like the other days. Ava walked down the hallway around 4, heading to the kitchen. She came back with a plate. 30 minutes passed. Then Lila appeared on the camera. She stood outside Ava's door again. No knock this time. She walked in fast. The door stayed open just enough to hear part of what was said. "I don't know why you keep acting like he'll believe you," Lila said. "You've always been a problem." "He's finally happy." Don't ruin that for him. There was a pause. You think he'd choose you? You're just a reminder of everything he lost. That hit me like a slap. Ava didn't say anything. I could see her frozen in place on the bed. Lila added, keep your mouth shut or I'll make sure he sends you away. He's already halfway there. Then she closed the door. I didn't move for a full minute. I just stared at the screen. I replayed it. Twice. There was no misunderstanding. No angle to twist it. It wasn't stress or miscommunication. It was calculated. Cold. Cruel. I felt sick. My stomach turned as the full weight of what I had ignored began crashing down. I hadn't protected my daughter. I had let someone into our home who was quietly tearing her down. I had listened to the wrong person. And worst of all, Ava had known I wouldn't believe her. She had looked me in the eye and expected doubt. She was right. I shut the laptop, stood up, and just paced. The house was quiet now. Lila was asleep down the hall. Ava's door was shut like always. But nothing felt normal anymore. I had seen the truth with my own eyes. And I couldn't unsee it. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there, eyes open in the dark, listening to every sound in the house. The faint creak of the hallway floorboards. The buzz of the fridge. And once, around 2 in the morning, the soft cough from Ava's room. I wanted to get up and go to her, but I didn't know what I would even say. Sorry didn't feel like enough. She had come to me with fear in her voice, and I had doubted her. I had trusted the wrong person, and now I had to face the truth of what that had cost. In the morning, I watched her at the breakfast table. She sat with her shoulders curved inward, like she was trying to shrink herself out of the room. Lila smiled and chatted like everything was fine, placing a plate in front of Ava with practiced grace. But I could see it now. The rehearsed kindness. The subtle control. The way she leaned close to correct Ava's posture with a hand on her back, just a little too firm. I stayed quiet through breakfast. I didn't touch my food. I just watched and thought. Once Ava left for school, I told Lila I was working from home. She kissed my cheek and left to run errands. I waited until the front door shut, then pulled up the footage again. I watched it once more, just to be sure. Not because I didn't believe it, but because part of me still hoped I had seen it wrong. I hadn't. By 11, I had made my decision. I called a lawyer I had used years ago when dealing with my mother's estate. I asked for advice on legal protections in case things got ugly. Then I opened a blank document and began writing down everything Ava had told me, along with what I had seen. I made a copy of the footage. I backed it up to a hard drive and locked it in my desk. I spent the rest of the day replaying my entire relationship with Lila in my mind. All the subtle ways she had redirected conversations. How she would smooth over Ava's absences with casual excuses. How she always seemed eager to speak on Ava's behalf, always smiling but never letting her speak for herself. When Ava got home that afternoon, she looked surprised to see me. She paused in the doorway like she wasn't sure if she was welcome. Hey, I said gently. Hi, she answered, cautious. I was thinking we could order in tonight. Maybe your favorite. She looked uncertain. Why? No reason, I said. Just thought it'd be nice. You and me. Talk a little. She hesitated, then nodded. Okay. Later that evening, Lila returned. I didn't say anything yet. I wasn't ready. I needed one more day to prepare, to make sure everything was in place. Ava went to her room early, and Lila sat beside me on the couch, legs tucked beneath her, like everything was fine. She leaned her head on my shoulder and asked, Everything okay? You've been quiet. I said I was just tired. And I was. Tired of pretending. Tired of not seeing what was right in front of me. I watched her, studied her face. The woman I thought I loved. The woman who had spent months tearing into my daughter behind closed doors. And I made myself a promise. The next time she smiled at me, I would not smile back. The next morning, I didn't pretend. I didn't smile. I didn't follow the routine. I sat at the table and waited. Lila walked into the kitchen with her usual energy, dressed for the day and humming softly under her breath. She poured coffee into 2 mugs, slid one toward me, and leaned against the counter like it was just another morning. I didn't touch the cup. She noticed. Everything all right? She asked. I need to talk to you, I said. Her eyes sharpened for half a second, but her voice stayed sweet. Sure. What's going on? I told her I had been reviewing footage. That I had set up a small camera in the hallway. Her body went still. She didn't blink. You recorded us, she said slowly. I did, I said. I didn't want to. But Ava came to me. She told me things. You told me she was lying. You said she was manipulative. But I saw you. I heard what you said to her. She crossed her arms. Her tone changed. I was trying to discipline her. She's been completely out of control. I never laid a hand on her. You threatened her, I said. You told her she was just a reminder of what I lost. You said I'd send her away. I said a lot of things, she replied. She pushes me. She disrespects me. I shook my head. She's 13. She's grieving. And you made her feel like a stranger in her own home. Lila stood straighter. So what? You're taking her side? After everything I've done for this family? There is no side, I said. There is right and wrong. And what you did to her was cruel. She didn't speak for a long time. She stared at me with a coldness I hadn't seen before. Maybe it had always been there, just hidden under politeness and charm. You think you can just throw me out? She asked finally. No, I said calmly. I'm asking you to leave. But if you make this difficult, I have everything saved. You need to go today. She laughed bitterly, a single sharp sound that didn't match her face. You're a fool. You'll regret this. I didn't answer. I walked away. She packed fast. Maybe she knew there wasn't room to fight. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't watch her leave. The moment the front door shut behind her, I let myself breathe for the first time in days. Ava didn't come out of her room until later that night. I was in the kitchen, wiping down the counter just to keep busy. She stood there silently, her eyes scanning the room, as if checking for something. She's gone, I said. Ava nodded. For good. Yes, I said. I saw what happened. You were right. I'm sorry it took me this long. She looked at me like she didn't believe it. I couldn't blame her. I didn't want to make you choose, she said softly. You didn't. I just finally started seeing clearly. We stood there for a while, not speaking. Then she walked over and hugged me. Not tightly, not like before, but enough to let me know that the door wasn't closed. It would take time, and I would give her all of it. There was no joy in any of it. No sense of victory. Just a quiet relief that the pretending was over. The first few days after Lila left were quiet in a strange way. Not peaceful, but still. The house didn't carry the same tension anymore, but it also didn't feel warm. Ava stayed in her room most of the time. She didn't avoid me, but she didn't seek me out either. I didn't push her. I made sure dinner was on the table. I picked up her favorite snacks. I left small notes outside her door telling her where I'd be, what I was cooking, just enough to remind her she wasn't alone. She started joining me at the table again by the end of the week. The first night, she didn't speak much. Just ate slowly and said thank you. The second night, she asked if we could watch one of her old favorite shows. We sat on the couch, and though there was still a space between us, it didn't feel as wide. One afternoon, I heard her humming quietly in her room. That simple sound nearly brought me to tears. I had missed it more than I realized. The guilt didn't go away. Every night, it followed me to bed. I'd lie there wondering how many moments I had missed. How many times Ava looked at me for help and saw a wall instead. I kept thinking about that first time she told me something was wrong and how quickly I had dismissed it. It wasn't just that I failed her. It was that I didn't even pause to consider she might be right. I started seeing a therapist. I didn't tell Ava at first, but when she found the appointment card on the counter, she asked what it was for. I told her the truth. That I was trying to be better. That I needed help too. She didn't say anything for a moment, then nodded. That's good, she said. You should. It was the most direct thing she had said to me since everything happened. That weekend, I took her out for lunch. Just the two of us. We sat in a quiet corner booth of the diner we used to go to with her mom. She didn't touch her milkshake at first. Just traced circles on the table with her finger. I didn't think you'd believe me, she said eventually. I didn't, I admitted. And I'm sorry. I was wrong. She looked down. I kept thinking if Mom were still here, none of this would have happened. I think that too, I said, and my voice cracked more than I meant it to. But I promise I'm here now. Fully. She nodded again. Still guarded, but something in her expression had softened. Over the next few weeks, things kept improving. Slowly. Carefully. She started spending more time in the living room. Her laughter returned in small bursts. I noticed she began leaving her door open when she went to bed. I didn't comment on it. I just noticed. We never spoke about Lila again. Not in detail. Ava didn't seem to want to, and I didn't push her. I think she just wanted to feel safe, to have her home back, and I was doing everything I could to give it to her. At night, when I checked the footage now, it was just a habit. An empty hallway. Stillness. I kept the camera up for a little while longer, not out of suspicion, but out of routine. Eventually, I took it down. The silence in the house no longer made me uneasy. It just felt like healing. By the start of the new school term, Ava was almost herself again. Not quite the way she used to be, but close. She got ready on time, joked about her teachers, and even played music from her bedroom while she got dressed. It felt like the house had exhaled. There was life in it again. And even though we were still recovering, I could tell we were moving in the right direction. I started coming home earlier just to be around more. Ava would sometimes be doing homework at the kitchen table or watching something on the couch. I'd cook dinner, and she'd help cut vegetables or stir something. We talked about everything but the months before. She still hadn't brought up Lila, and I didn't either. I had no interest in forcing a conversation she wasn't ready to have. Then one Friday evening, as we cleaned up after dinner, she looked at me and said, "You kept the footage, right?" I paused, then nodded. "Yes. It's saved. Backed up too." She didn't say anything else. Just rinsed her plate and placed it in the rack. But I could tell the question had weight. She needed to know it wasn't all in her head. That the evidence still existed. Proof that someone had seen her truth and believed it. The next morning, she knocked on my door. It was early. I was still in bed. "Can we go see Mom today?" she asked. We hadn't been to the cemetery in months. The last time we went, it was silent. Ava had cried the entire drive home and then refused to talk for days. But this time, her voice was steady. She was ready. We brought flowers. Her favorites. Ava placed them neatly, brushed leaves off the headstone, and sat on the grass beside it. I stood back and let her talk. She didn't speak loudly, just whispered things I wasn't meant to hear. I gave her space. On the drive home, she leaned her head against the window. Her voice was soft when she finally said, she would have hated Lila. I didn't respond right away. I didn't want to say anything that would shut her down. "I think she would have protected you from her," I said carefully. "She would have seen through her," Ava replied. "It took you a long time." I nodded. "Too long." There was no anger in her voice, just truth. "She'd be proud of you, though," I added. "For standing up for yourself. For staying kind." Ava didn't answer, but I saw her wipe at her eyes. Back at home, she disappeared into her room for a bit, then came back out holding an old photo. It was of the three of us, me, Ava, and her mom on a beach trip years ago. Sunburned, smiling, holding cheap sodas. She placed it on the mantel without a word. Things weren't perfect. I wasn't perfect. But that picture sitting there felt like a quiet declaration. We had lost something, but we still had each other. And now we were finally learning how to protect that bond. Ava's teacher called me the next week. Said she had volunteered to help tutor younger students. Said she seemed more confident again. That she had spoken up in class for the first time in months. When I got home that day, I told her I was proud of her. She looked embarrassed but smiled anyway. And for the first time in a long while, it felt like everything was going to be okay. The school year moved on, and so did we. Bit by bit, our house turned into a home again. I could see the weight lifting from Ava's shoulders, though it hadn't disappeared completely. Some nights she still closed her bedroom door quietly, not out of fear, but from habit. She still checked to make sure I was home before she relaxed on the couch. These small things reminded me that healing doesn't happen all at once. It builds slowly, like trust. One afternoon after school, I came home to find Ava baking. The kitchen smelled like cinnamon and apples. She had flour on her cheeks and her hair pulled back in a loose ponytail. It was the first time I had seen her doing something just for herself in months. I leaned on the doorway and watched for a second. "Making something special?" I asked. She looked over and shrugged. "Thought I'd try the pie Mom used to make. Found her old recipe." I stepped forward. "Want help?" She smiled just a little. "Only if you promise not to mess it up." We spent the next hour bumping into each other and laughing. I watched her move with confidence, measuring, mixing, even teasing me when I fumbled the crust. It felt natural, comfortable, like we were finally starting to live again. That night we ate the pie with forks right from the dish, sitting on the couch, watching reruns. When she leaned her head against my shoulder, I let my hand rest gently on hers. No words. Just a moment I didn't dare interrupt. Later that week, I received an email from Lila. Short, cold. She wanted to collect a few belongings she had left behind. Nothing sentimental. Just paperwork, a few books, a coat she had forgotten in the hall closet. I didn't reply right away. I waited until Ava was out of the house, then packed the items myself. I didn't want her near us again. I arranged to have her pick everything up from the porch when we weren't home. Ava saw the empty coat hanger that evening. She noticed, but didn't say a word. We both knew who it belonged to. I had made a vow not to let Lila back into our lives, not even by accident. I also started looking into family counseling again, thinking maybe Ava and I could go together. I didn't want to pretend things were perfect just because they were better. I owed her more than comfort. I owed her a future where she felt strong and heard. That weekend, we drove out to the lake. Just the two of us. No plans. No schedule. We walked along the water and skipped rocks. Ava told me about a boy in her science class who always made stupid jokes. I asked if she liked him, and she rolled her eyes but smiled. "Don't make it weird, Dad," she said. "I was just asking," I replied, laughing. It felt like life. Not the one we had before. That one was gone. But a new kind. Quiet. Real. Ours. As we drove home with the windows down, Ava reached for the radio and flipped to a song her mom used to play. She didn't say anything, just looked at the road ahead. I didn't know exactly where we were going, but for the first time in a long time, I knew we were going there together.